Hi there, everyone. Meteorologist Robert Spetta here with you on today, the 11th of October, 2013. This is our continued coverage of Typhoon Nari or Santi as it crossed over the Philippines here, now racing off towards the west in Vietnam. You're going to be having to get ready for this storm system in the next 48 to 72 hours. Also, in the second half of this update, we're going to talk about Wipha, which very well is going to be approaching Japan as well. But first, let's take a look at some of the imagery coming from James Reynolds out there in Belair, just north of where the storm system made landfall. He actually was right in that right front quadrant. And that is this area right here at landfall where he was and where these photos are coming out from this morning. I'll just use this Twitter to actually show it here. And if you do not follow him on Twitter, I do recommend it, especially if you follow typhoons out here in the Western Pacific. He's usually in the middle of these storms. But somebody struggling with a chainsaw there. It does look like it, as he stated in this part, the flooding not so bad there in Belair. Actually, the storm raced right through quite fast, so there is some minor flooding, but for the most part, it does look like the biggest damage here is wind damage with these down trees. Now crews racing around cleaning up the mess. A lot of down power lines as well. I have seen reports of power outages all along the eastern seaboard. In Manila and areas just north of Manila saw some pretty gusty winds through the overnight hours. Definitely tropical storm strength winds along with some heavy rain. But the good news is that this did race through at a fairly fast pace. We did see some low-lying flooding, some urban flooding as anticipated, but it didn't linger here, and we don't see these big monsoonal flow type event with this storm system. Actually, radar imagery at this time is only indicating these rain bands really just tapering off. Still scattered thunderstorms expected, and that's going to be expected throughout the day, but look at that bulk of the convection. It's now off here towards the west and moving away from the Philippines. If you have any reports of serious flooding in your local area, though, I know I did put it out on Facebook and Twitter. Please do put that down in the comment box below. I do think that there is a risk of some flooding far in areas farther off here towards the north. Talking about Angeles and also over towards Quezon City. You could be looking at that very serious risk, especially in these low-lying areas. But Belair, like I said, that's off here towards the north. You can just see it on the northern extent of the radar. That is where James is. The bulk of the population here in the Philippines, though, across this low-lying plain here from Manila over towards Cavite and extending off there towards the north. So where is this storm going now? Well, this is from the ECMWF model, and it brings it out there towards Dong Hoi, clipping southern Hainan, moving into the Gulf of Tonkin. Every time we see a storm move into this Gulf, the water here is just so warm it starts to explode. And in this case, we're looking at winds sustained over 100 knots. And let's compare it up here with the GFS model at landfall. And they actually have it making landfall much sooner than with the ECMWF. And I think this is more likely the case by Monday evening. Here right around Da Nang and Hue, Vietnam, you're going to be getting the brunt of this storm system, and this seems more likely the case. Monday evening, this storm system coming ashore and just looking rather violent rate in this area. JMA, JTWC also expecting very similar outcome as far as the forecasted trend, with JTWC taking it on shore right there around Da Nang, Vietnam, right front quadrant right there in Hue. So we're looking at a risk of a storm surge in low-lying areas, and as always, with these storms coming ashore, the mountainous terrain there of western Vietnam really causes that very serious risk of flooding, and this is going to have a lot of moisture with it. So yeah, we're looking at that severe threat with this. I know people are already being told to evacuate already ahead of the storm system, and that is the good news because it is going to be packing quite a punch. That was JTWC. JMA, I did say they actually were in line. It does look like they're starting to shift their track a little bit farther there towards the north. My thoughts at this time, given the storm system, the model outputs, at least at this time, and the overall background flow, I think it will stay south of Hanoi. I don't see that dramatic extent towards the north, but a lot could change. So everybody from Hanoi down towards Da Nang, even areas just south of this, need to closely watch it. But I think Hue, Vietnam, and maybe right around that area, give or take 100 kilometers towards the north or towards the south, is going to be where the storm system will be making landfall by Monday night into Tuesday morning as a fairly strong typhoon with a well-defined eye likely. Severe tropical storm Wipha, not quite a typhoon, but look at just the size of this one. It has a lot of moisture coming in, and I think think once this defeats that dry air on the northern periphery, we're going to be looking at a fairly violent typhoon developing, moving off towards the northwest, staying east of Okinawa in the southern Japanese islands. But don't let that just totally let your guard down. You're going to be seeing some high waves out there and likely some scattered rain showers and some winds gusting up to tropical storm, or even could be sustained tropical storm strength. And for the military out here, if I was making decisions as far as the T-cores, definitely wouldn't go through the T-core systems at the time. I don't think you're going to be seeing these 50 knots sustained, but that storm watch warning that they put out, and when a storm is nearby, I think that's going to be likely the case here. This is by Monday evening going into Tuesday morning, and you have these tropical storm strength winds. So just look at the massive size of the winds out of this, though, and even though it is well offshore, you have that very well-defined eye developing and around it. And then let's take a look at the extended range with this model, because it likely is going to be getting wrapped up with the upper level jet here, becoming just dispersed and absolutely massive wind field according to the GFS model at this time. I know a lot of the tracks keeping it just off the eastern seaboard, but I do expect them to kind of waver it back there towards the west just due to slower development and how it's going to interact with this trough out here. And once it does, this very well could be the outcome. We're looking at a landfall right east of Nagoya, heading out there towards areas just south of Tokyo, Yokosuka. You would definitely be going through T-core updates here. I know I'm making this update on Saturday, but the Yokosuka area and surrounding Tokyo areas, I know we have a lot of military to watch, that's why I'm stressing that. I think you would be going through that all the way up to T-Core 1. And also, we're looking at that very high risk of typhoon warnings up and down the coast and very serious and heavy rainfall, just the same time period. With the MSL here, you can just see those intense rains from the Key Peninsula extending off there towards the north. Now, granted, this is still several days out. We're still looking at about 4 to 5 day forecast on this. And the Japan Meteorological Agency hasn't given that westerly track a chance yet. They still have it skirting the coastline. And in this case, you still would probably see some pretty strong winds up and down the coast, because this is going to not be a weak storm. I mean, they're maxing out at about 80 up to about 150 knots. JTWC maxes out over sustained of 100 knots. So not a weak storm system at all, to say the least, with this. So we're definitely going to continue to watch it. I think that there still is a chance of it staying offshore, but I think the most likely scenario at this time is it pushing onshore and bringing some pretty well, hefty winds there to much of mainland Japan, and also the risk of storm surge, but the very obvious risk of flood. And by the way, while all that is going on, we are still monitoring the very severe cyclonic storm posing the risk of loss of lives out here. Just one of the most powerful storms in recent history in the Bay of Bengal to hit this area, and definitely going to continue to monitor. Stay safe out there, everybody. Bye.